How do I find the right special education tutor for my child in New York City? Many parents see their child struggling and they want to do something about it. They see them having difficulty with skills like reading, writing, math, or study skills. They might really struggle to get through their homework at night. Finding the right tutor can be life-changing for children, especially those with special education needs. So, what should you look for in the right tutor for your child? First off is an initial evaluation. You want to make sure that the tutor or the tutoring program that you go with begins with an initial assessment of your child's needs. Are they struggling with reading? If so, which aspects do they need help with? Is it sounding out words or decoding? Is it reading fluency? Is it reading comprehension or some combination thereof? Are they struggling with writing? Are they having difficulties with math? And if so, is it more math word problem solving? Is it more math computation? Have they grasped their basic math facts? These are all elements that can be unfolded as part of that initial evaluation process. So make sure that happens. If your child has an IEP or another outside evaluation, make sure the tutor reads that as well, just so that they have a whole idea of who your child is and what their needs are. Second, make sure that you find someone who really specializes in what your child needs help with. If your child has dyslexia, they should work with someone who's going to utilize the Orton-Gillingham method and specialized multisensory approaches to develop their reading skills. If they're struggling with writing, if they have ADHD, make sure that they're working with someone who specializes in working with students like your child in terms of their age and grade level, along with their overall profile and any diagnoses that they may have. Next, make sure that the tutor that you work with utilizes a specialized approach to tutoring, not just generic homework help or generic reading support that might vary from session to session, but make sure that they're using specialized instruction. For example, if your child has a reading challenge or has dyslexia, Orton-Gillingham instruction can be tremendously helpful for them. Essentially, what that does is it teaches them how to decode or sound out words accurately. It starts with foundational skills, where they're at now, and then build upwards from there. For example, some students might have difficulty with basic CVC or consonant vowel consonant words. So the tutor will begin by teaching individual letter names and sounds, then how to blend those sounds together to form words, and then eventually move on to more complex words with blends, with consonant digraphs, vowel digraphs, multisyllabic words, prefixes, roots, and so forth. So starting with the foundation and building upwards from there. Of course, the lesson should also be very multisensory by nature. As part of this structured plan, the tutor should integrate multisensory tools like colored sand for forming letters, magnetic tiles, mini whiteboards, shaving cream, colored highlighters. These tools not only help engage the student, but of course help them solidify and build these core skills. If your child has ADHD or is struggling with their executive functioning skills, you want a tutor who has a strong tool set in helping students build their executive functioning skills. For example, many students with executive functioning challenges really struggle with time management. So one strategy that an executive functioning coach might teach is what we call the ET versus the AT strategy for time management. Let's say your child has a math homework sheet that they need to complete. What they should do is estimate how long they think that worksheet will take to complete and write down the ET or the estimated time. Then they should keep tabs on how long it actually takes and write down the AT or the actual time. And we find that in the beginning, when students who have ADHD, executive functioning challenges, time management difficulties, when they start using this strategy, there's usually a very big difference between those two times, the ET and the AT. But the more they use these strategies, the more realistic they become with their time and the more their time management skills improve. That's just one strategy that an executive functioning coach could teach your child who struggles with time management. Another idea is setting up a workspace where your child will work same spot every day, every time they sit down to work on their homework, and it should have all of the supplies that they might need for completing their homework so that they don't get up mid-study session, wandering around, looking for supplies, and of course, naturally getting distracted along the way. They should also set a consistent time for when they're going to do their schoolwork. This could be right after school, it could be right before dinner, it could be later in the evening. The key is setting up a consistent time and regularly working at that time rather than a random different time that changes each day. These are some strategies that your child can really benefit from. Next, it's really important that there's a structured plan in place for the tutoring. We want to start with where your child is at now, and that's where that initial evaluation comes in, and come up with a specific plan using the right research-based techniques that will remediate the skills that your child is having difficulty with. If they're struggling with decoding words, spelling words, and expressing their thoughts on paper when writing, there should be a structured tutoring plan in place that begins with developing those core skills where your child is at, and then moving upwards from there as they progress forward. Having a structured, systematic plan in place for tutoring is incredibly important. And finally, try to find a tutor that your child will connect well with. Sometimes we'll find the most brilliant tutors who know their field inside out, but your child just doesn't connect with them. And unfortunately, that oftentimes doesn't work. Having the right personality match, the right bond, really can make your child so open and so receptive to the concept of tutoring. So try to look for all of these elements if you can when looking for a special education tutor for your child in New York City. It's amazing what a difference it can make when you find the right support for your child, you help them develop these skills, and in turn, they will naturally become more confident, less anxious, more excited about learning, and ultimately more successful in school. Feel free to reach out to us at eblcoaching.com. We specialize in working with special education students. We do tutoring both in person at our learning center. We also do tutoring at the home, and we do it virtually. So reach out anytime.